Hello humans, hello humans. Damn, it's noon. Long day. Heading outbound now. Got all my chores done, met with everybody, did all of the necessary stuff, and heading out to do more damn work. Got people meeting me in about an hour or so at my place to talk about the extension I'm putting on and the work I need to get done there. Anyway, though, so I wanted to talk for a few minutes about Sci-Fi World. Most kids don't know it, but America was never supposed to be an empire, right? We rebelled against the British Empire and came on over here because we didn't want anything to do with their way of organizing things. And then we end up replicating them. They infiltrated us in the 1800s. And they tried to put in 2 central banks. We threw those out. And then eventually they were able to work their way in and put in another central bank and seize control in 1913. It actually started in the 1890s. They started a big push for, but a long string of people that were standing in their way, starting about, actually it was like, I think one of the first that I've identified is in like 1889. This particular banker in New York that was making waves about no central bank. Anyway, so as we move into Sci-Fi World, we will also okay, so how do I say that? Okay, so we're going to experience, and we're experiencing it right now, which is based on the fiat currency of the Federal Reserve Bank, which is not part of the federal government, has no reserves, and is not a bank. It's simply a money laundering creation machine. Anyway, so in the core, it's happening because of the death of the currency, because the currency can't be extended any longer because it has no purchasing power. And this is rapidly becoming evident. People are starving even though they're working. They're not able to, pay for housing, this kind of thing. So we know that the currency is failing. It actually truly is no longer working for people. In 1913, when they first brought it out, almost everybody ignored it. Hardly anybody used it. In 1913, a family of 4 could have all of their expenses covered by $1 a day in terms of earned income. So if you earn $30 a month, you could support yourself, you could support your wife, and you could support 2 kids. Not a bad deal, right? That was basically the prevailing wage for any kind of skilled work other than like farm labor, right? Because it was a different category. We were still 80% agricultural at that stage in the 1800s. But by the time we get into the 1900s, we're looking at basically $1 a day in a gold-based economy as being a living wage. And it was generally paid. We had plenty of gold. Everything was circulating just fine. And then the Elohim worship cult gets their bank in. And so now it's actually reached the point where you can't survive on your retirement that you worked all your life for if you're on only a government retirement program. It just is not going to be working for you. You won't be able to get health care. You won't be able to afford housing. And pretty soon it'll get to the point where even with all your other expenses, if you pay none of your bills, you still won't be able to afford food. And that period is going to be very, very brief, okay? So we're not talking years for that. The whole social order would be in upheaval if that tried to continue for years, because basically everybody was starving. And so, believe me, if we had no food here and the situation was that dire and stuff, I will use my last of my resources to go and raise an army and stage a revolution here in Washington State. The rest of y'all can go fuck yourselves. You got to work out your own issues, right? But in Washington State, if we have that dire situation where people are starving because the food system's broken down and there is no political will to change the circumstances, meaning, you know, the Democrats are still in charge, yada, 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 then it's like, okay, dudes, it's pirate time. You know, revolution is here, fucker. And, you know, a bunch of old men, because I would just go and tell everybody I was going to go and take my arms, you know, I'm not going to hide it. I'm coming into Olympia to clear the place out and take it over, right? Redo, restart. So that would be the approach I would take under those circumstances. It's not going to happen. The way that our financial system is structured, there are so many politicians that are so fucking freaked out because they know that we can all identify them. You can look on the phone, get their picture, etc., etc., and we'd go and track them all down and hang them. And then we'd set about, you know, fixing things up again. You know, anyway, though, so a couple of odd little notes. One of my stalkers has a phone with my picture on it that he did not put on there, and also has pictures of JC and a bunch of people that I don't know. Are they all part of a gang stalking, or is there some kind of like organized effort here to rattle our cage, give us some shit? Sure looks that way. Anyway, though, so sci-fi world is going to emerge out of HyperNovelty. We're in HyperNovelty now as authority fades. What makes it HyperNovelty is that there will be new shit everywhere, constantly, continuously, because there will be no authorities left to say that, A, that's not true, or, you know, that's a bogus thought. There won't be any constraints on our ability to examine data in terms of history and all of this kind of shit, unlike now. Right? So if you get into too much history now, they're going to come and say, no, you're wrong, this didn't exist, this didn't happen. People will give you blowback for it, right? That's going to fall away. A lot of the people that are doing that are paid shills. They're very stupid, you know, low intelligence people. They don't have much on the go mentally, and they're simply being paid to be, you know, an academic parrot, to hold the line, you know, prevent disinformation, this kind of stuff, right? Oh, you can't weaponize history against us, blah, 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 in spite of the fact that they have indeed weaponized history with all of the critical race theory and all of that kind of shit. All that crap's going to fall away this year. It'll be very dramatic, I think, from the end of January onward, but certainly from the third week in February, we're going to get into some serious level of social disruptions that will run across the entire nation. Okay, so this may also be participating during that period of time. We may be having a situation where we have the markets going crazy. Okay, they're not going to crash at that point. That's probably a little too early. Maybe we might see some initial, phase of a stock market crash around the 18th of February, but the Fed and everybody will still be pumping their fake dollars like mad. So it's going to be difficult to see that we're going to have a price crash relative to stocks. And that's what everybody is looking at for, oh, our economy's good because our stock market's up. You know, it's like horse shit. Stock market is all rehypothecation, Ponzi scheme shit anyway, as we will discover, because we're going to run into this crack-up boom. In the crack-up boom, we can expect the Fed to shovel all kinds of money through all kinds of their fiat, through every possible outlet into stock market, and trying to get it into people's hands to spend as the velocity of the spending drops, which it's already happening. I've been talking with merchants all day today out in the wild here. We are certainly seeing all the signs of depression, right? Especially in terms of money velocity through the system, through the locals' hands out here. This gets so complicated, guys. All right, so we're going to get a crack-up boom. They're going to shovel money like mad into the stock market. Hey, look, you know, it's a good economy. Look, the stock market's up. The people won't be buying it And at some point here, and we're very rapidly approaching it, we're going to have this net negative return, in the sense that, like I was saying, you could work and you could get an income, but it wouldn't be sufficient to pay housing and food and transportation, right? And so, you know, to say nothing of healthcare and this kind of thing. So the failure of the money is making the social order fail, okay, all around us. So you know that when you know your money is failing, when a class of drugs that a person uses for like kidney treatment, and they've been paying this for years because they'd had dialysis and all this kind of shit, all of a sudden doubles. And it doubled in 1 month. So this guy I was talking to today while I was waiting on some service today had a situation 4 months ago where a particular drug he was taking, and he said it wouldn't mean anything to me, used to cost him $7,000 a month, and now it's gone to almost $15,000 a month. So, you know, I think the big pharma industry is trying to play catch up or get ahead relative to the death of the currency. Anyway, though, so as the currency dies in this period of hypernovelty, we're going to have a reaction seen in the social order that will reflect back on itself. So in other words, we'll have a situation where people won't be able to make a living on the wages, and so they'll, you know, like I was saying in the previous talk, so anybody with student debt, the first thing that we can expect that will happen is that they won't pay those debts anymore. They won't pay interest on that debt. They won't even deal with it. Pretty soon you're going to have this so egregiously in our face that the banks are going to say, relative to like student loans, they'll start saying, oh, don't worry, you don't have to pay it back. Just pay the interest. If you just pay the interest, you're good. And it's like that's the very last phase of the banks being able to get enough money to flow through their system in a total loop in order for the bank to be active, not even solvent, just be able to open the fucking doors. And I suspect that's a couple of months away. I don't know how. Wow, eagle right over my head here. Big guy too. He's probably been fishing in the river here. Anyway, so the crap. I just started somehow I nicked myself and started it bleeding again. Anyway, though, so the social order here, getting a paper towel and we're good. The social order is going to be evolving. Okay, so it's going to evolve out of this state of disrepair, dysfunction, all of that, and we'll gradually start fixing things, you know, changing things, heading, and it'll be fairly dramatic because at the moment, those people that want to correct the societal ills are being stymied, blocked by people that want to continue on in this communist effort and their anti-humanity and yada yada yada. And we don't know why the hell they think that way, but they're part of the Elohim worship cult. They may be blood drinkers. Who the fuck knows? Anyway, they're out there using money to try and prevent people from fixing the problems that they engineered. And so that's our structure at the moment. Well, as the money dies, a lot of the foot soldiers for the side that want to break everything down, a lot of the foot soldiers there are not going to be paid, and they won't be available to participate. So I expect that, like, they'll call a BLM riot, and nobody is going to show up much because, they're not getting paid anything to make it worthwhile. And it's getting a little hinky out there with, and so this is also the problem for the Elohim worship cult, is that they're riding a very fine line. Okay, so they're trying to skate along on this fine line. If they go to either side of it, they're fucked. And one of the sides, they banking system, but they've got to do it in such a way that they don't pull the rug out from the whole system too too rapidly, because then all social order would fail, and a lot of us would just take up arms, and as I say, we would go and have the political will in the form of a revolution to change things. And in the process of changing things, in that period of disruption and chaos, a lot of the Elohim worship people, that kind of thing, right? That will occur, and especially if it goes too rapidly, things break out too fast. Anyway, so SciFi world is going to come out of the hypernovelty that is resulting now from the bad guys trying to deliberately destroy the social system in order to engineer the new financial system, which is the central bank digital currency. So, SciFi world will begin, I think, to our site. We'll be able to see the emergence of some aspects of SciFi world this year. Probably, the very last quarter, right? The very last few months of this year. We'll get some hints of how SciFi world will start emerging, start manifesting. But it's going to be a period of vast numbers of new inventions coming out, new stuff happening. A lot of people will get... Okay, so as part of this, I suspect that we will go back to a sound money situation, and then we'll go back to real investment as opposed to speculative money placement, right? And so as we get into this, we'll have a sound money, we'll get into investments will start, investors, people with excess money that were able to be smart and preserve wealth through this transformation, will then start trying to put their money to work in various different industries. And so we'll have inventions happening all over the place that will then go through the various generations of improving the tech and so on, and those people that invest in those companies will get a return on their money, as well as the appreciation of the assets that they've nominally purchased. So I'm looking into some companies that use electricity in novel ways, and going to decide, at some point to invest some money in those companies. At this point, it seems very wise to follow that course of action. So I found one, I'm dealing with it now. They're on generation 2 of their product, which it's like, the generation 2 is a little wimpy, but I can see the technical problems for generation 3 and 4, and by generation 4, it will surpass the tool it's intended to replace. Okay, so right now it's in competition and doing very poorly because of the nature of the electrically driven process that this tool uses. So I'm not talking like electric cars or anything like that, right? Anyway, though, so at that point, I can see, I'm going to play around. I bought one of their units. I'm going to play around with it and see if I actually can't make some inventions off of it and get in on the invention cycle of the whole thing, right? But also, if I just use the product and stay abreast of this particular company, then I can, buy generation 3 and generation 4, which are things I want anyway. I mean, the tool itself is something I want anyway. I'm not being mysterious. I just don't want people going and trying to buy this. You got to be really sophisticated, knowing what you're doing here, and be willing to take, massive risks with your personal capital. So I'm not going to say anything at this point until we reach a certain point. Then I'll tell people, oh yeah, I'm invested in this, and I'm thinking of investing in this, and so on. Not that I'm going to be good at that, right? I think I might be good at that in an investment environment, but I'm certainly not good at it in a speculation environment. Speculation drives me crazy. My buddy Joe, if I did that, I would, I'd have so much anxiety, I'd give myself, what are those things? Panic attacks, right? So anyway, so it's just not something I'm constitutionally built to do. However, an investment where I just put some money in and track the company over time, it's like, hey, no worries, guy. I like this technology, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so we're coming into SciFi world emerging this year out of the chaos of this year of transition, and it'll probably be more like 18, 19 months. And then we'll be sort of solidly into SciFi world, and there will be a recognition that we're not going back, right? You'll be able to see that we're not going to be repeating the old mistakes, that things truly have changed. And, this for even the regular normies. And I talk to normies all the time. I push them a little bit, disturb their mind, see what happens, see how they react. I was doing some of that today with some guys that have had the jab and, are totally normies and have no idea what they're facing. Although, I got to say that they were all worried. So they've all heard enough to be worried. And I'm telling them things to do, but they're not yet worried enough that they're going to try and do that. They're still captured mentally by the authority of the medical system. But believe me, when we yank the mRNA and when the big pharma crashes, and so we lose that level of authority for quote medicines, these chemicals that they crank out, that's going to be a huge tranche of people that'll just say, holy shit, and they'll move over into HyperNovelty here. They'll say, because there is no authority, right? There is no ultimate authority on all of this. And also, by the way, this whole period of time is going to bring out the breakdown of authority in religion, regardless of anything I do. I could have kept my mouth shut and we would still be here, people talking about the Elohim. We would still be facing the Elohim coming back and all of the things that we're still facing. I thought to get a jump on it, right? To get those people that can think about it ahead of time, thinking about it so they don't have to stop and go through this process when we're dealing with the Elohim themselves. It's just better to have plans, and have your mind free because you recognize some of the shit that's actually going on. Anyway, so the last quarter of this year, I expect to see some pretty significant changes that will indicate that we're really seriously shifting over into sci-fi world. And in the meantime, it's going to be ugly and dirty and massively chaotic, and all kinds of shit's going to happen. But it's like, well, it all has to happen. It's all going to be good for us, even though at the moment it doesn't feel good, right? It's kind of like, you don't want to really sit there and suture the wound in your leg. You know that every time you put that needle in there and thread it through and bring those two parts of the wound together, that's going to hurt. And it's already hurting, and you're going to keep adding to the hurt through the whole process. But you do know that the minute you get to that last suture, then that phase is done. And eventually the hurt will go away and everything will heal up. And that's really where we are. People are just reluctant to take the needle and jab it into their leg on one side of the wound and pull it through to the other side of the wound and then come back with the line and tie it up and start closing up the wounds, right? A lot of people don't even see we're wounded. So anyway, the current thinking for us now is the last week in January is going to begin a bunch of chaos. And I suspect that in the February the 18th, I'm suspecting, I don't have any for sure kind of indicators that I would really have a lot of confidence in, but I suspect that there's a high probability that that will be the period of time for our the rest of our release language that had been forecast back last July and August. We still have yet to complete a lot of that. The reason I suspect that this is probably going to happen and may happen on, I'm got a lot of probabilities that it will happen, and I suspect that it will happen in February because of the building tension values now and the way they're growing and the type of language that we're getting building tension on. And I won't go into details. I'm almost back at the place here and I've got stuff I've got to do. So third week in January, last week in January, 18th of February, we're going to get, I'm saying that we'll get a big hit on HyperNovelty in the first week. Oh, that was my guy. He was supposed to be here. He was here early. Oh, well. Shit. Anyway, so he wasn't supposed to be here till after 1. Maybe he'll come back. Anyway, so the April 3rd, we should have, for all of us guys, for people that listen to me, that really going out and pay attention, as opposed to the people that listen and say, oh, that old fucker doesn't know shit. So April 3rd is where I'm suspecting that the woo people will be able to say, yeah, HyperNovelty is here, authority is dying right and left, and it's increasing, and the rate of increase itself is increasing. So we'll start getting into the snowball effect, right? Where you're rolling down the hill, and you're going at a pretty fast clip, and then you notice that the speed at which you are rotating in terms of spinning around and going down that hill is increasing. And so it all becomes this, as I say, a snowball effect. And I'm expecting that to pick up in April and to continue, and it'll really hit the normies in the first part of June, maybe the middle of June, something like that. And they will, then we'll start having normie freakouts. Normie freakouts are going to participate in our HyperNovelty. So that's going to be the increase of the increase, so to speak, right? And then it'll start reflecting back, and it'll get really chaotic through the summer. Anyway, guys, I gotta go and do stuff. I'll get into more of this stuff later. There's so much more. We've got lots of detail in some of the data sets now as to how some of it's going to peel off. But basically, it's the buckle up buttercup time. It's here now. Okay, gotta get moving. Talk to y'all later.